History isn't just what's written in textbooks, etched in monuments, or broadcast across the globe. Sometimes the most profound moments are hidden in the margins, experienced not by the celebrated figures, but by ordinary people caught in the extraordinary tide. And sometimes those moments whisper secrets back to us, secrets carried on forgotten frequencies, hinting at a reality far stranger than we imagine. What if one of the most televised events in human history, the Apollo 11 moon landing, held such a secret? Stay with us, because by the end of the story, you might just hear an echo that could rewrite our place in the stars. Welcome back, truth seekers and history explorers, to Ordinary People at Historical Events. We're thrilled to have you here, embarking on another journey into the past's hidden corners. If you believe that history is lived by individuals, not just headlines, make sure you subscribe now. Hit that like button and ring the notification bell, because the story we're about to unravel promises surprises that will challenge your perspective. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about July 20th, 1969. The world was united in a way rarely seen before or since. Eyes turned skyward, radios crackled with anticipation, black and white television screens glowed in living rooms from London to Tokyo, from Cairo to Buenos Aires. Humanity was about to step onto another world. The culmination of a decade's fierce ambition, Cold War rivalry, and sheer scientific audacity was unfolding live. The names Armstrong, Aldrin, Collins were on everyone's lips. The Eagle was nearing the sea of tranquility, but far from the stark, majestic landscape of the moon, and far from the humming, tense control room in Houston, another story was quietly, almost accidentally beginning. In Helsinki, Finland, a city navigating the careful balancing act of neutrality between East and West, Elena Petrova leaned closer to her radio equipment. 31 years old, with eyes perhaps a little tired from late nights spent deciphering meanings between languages, Elena worked as a translator for a small, independent linguistic institute. Her job often involved monitoring international broadcasts, news feeds, cultural programs, sometimes obscure signals, translating nuances that automated systems might miss. On this day, like millions of others, she was captivated by the unfolding lunar mission, but her assignment was specific. Monitor a range of shortwave frequencies, some known, some less documented, listening for any unusual cross-chatter or unlocked transmissions. Standard procedure during major global events, a way institutes like hers gathered raw linguistic and contextual data. Her apartment doubled as her workspace, filled with books in multiple languages, stacks of tapes, and the complex, comforting clutter of her shortwave receivers and recording machines. The air was thick with the static hum of potential contact, the electric anticipation mirroring the world's mood. Outside her window, the Helsinki summer evening was calm, a stark contrast to the cosmic drama playing out hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. She tuned the dial slowly, meticulously logging the official NASA communications, the Soviet commentary, the BBC's steady narration. Routine. Standard. Until it wasn't. It happened during a brief lull in the main mission chatter, just moments before the Eagle's final descent phase was confirmed. On a frequency band usually silent, or filled with indistinct noise, a band marked in her logbook simply as auxiliary feed, monitor if active, a sound emerged. It wasn't the familiar crackle of space radiation, nor the clipped, technical jargon of astronauts and ground control. It wasn't Russian, English, or any language she knew. It was a rhythmic echo, a series of pulses layered beneath a faint, melodic resonance that seemed utterly out of place. It was structured, yet alien. Cold dread mixed with intense curiosity prickled down her spine. She checked her equipment. Was it interference? A reflection? A sophisticated prank carried on the waves? But the sound had a purity, a haunting clarity that defied simple explanation. It pulsed, faded, then returned, weaving around the official transmissions like a phantom counterpoint. Elena felt her breath catch. This wasn't human. It felt ancient, vast, interstellar. What secrets hide in the static between known transmissions? What whispers might we overhear if we only tuned to the right, forgotten frequency? Elena frantically checked the tape recorder. It was running. Whatever this was, she was capturing it. The world watched Neil Armstrong prepare to take one small step, unaware that in a quiet room in Helsinki, Elena Petrova had just heard a sound that suggested humanity might not be as alone in the universe as it thought. The world celebrated. Champagne corks popped. Tears of joy were shed, and humanity collectively marveled at the grainy images flickering across their screens. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But in Helsinki, Elena Petrova felt a profound sense of dislocation. The triumphant narrative echoing globally felt distant, almost irrelevant, compared to the unsettling rhythm still resonating in her ears from that tape recorder. The eagle had landed, but another enigma had arrived, silently, on a forgotten frequency. Had anyone else heard it? Was she the sole witness to this auditory phantom? Her first instinct was meticulous, professional analysis. She rewound the tape, listened again, and again. The sound remained stubbornly alien. It had a structure, a repeating pattern embedded within the haunting melody that seemed too deliberate for random noise, too smooth for terrestrial interference. She cross-referenced the timing with the official Apollo 11 mission log. The echo appeared precisely during a brief handover between communication relays, a momentary crack in the official sonic facade. Was it designed to be heard then? Or was its appearance purely coincidental, a ghost slipping through the gaps? She consulted her technical manuals, her books on radio wave propagation, on atmospheric phenomena, even on the nascent field of radio astronomy. Nothing matched. Solar flares? Too chaotic. Tropospheric ducting? Wrong frequency, wrong characteristics. Military signals? Possible, certainly, in the thick Cold War atmosphere. Both superpowers were masters of electronic espionage. But the sound, it felt different. Less functional, more resonant, like a call across an impossible distance. The weight of her discovery, or potential delusion, pressed heavily upon her. Who could she tell? Her supervisor at the Institute, Mr. Nieminen, was a cautious, pragmatic man, unlikely to entertain extraordinary claims without irrefutable proof. Reporting it to the Finnish authorities risked entanglement in bureaucratic skepticism, or worse, attracting unwelcome attention from intelligence agencies, east or west. Helsinki thrived on discretion. Unexplained signals potentially linked to superpowers were not matters to be discussed lightly, and the sheer scale of the moon landing itself dwarfed everything. Announcing she'd heard a strange noise would be like claiming a whisper could be heard over a volcanic eruption. Ridicule seemed the most likely outcome. When faced with the unbelievable, do you trust your senses or dismiss the impossible? Elena found herself caught between the rigorous discipline of her profession and the profound, unsettling nature of her experience. Days turned into weeks. The world slowly returned to its terrestrial concerns, the moon dust settling both literally and figuratively. But for Elena, the echo lingered. She dedicated her evenings, her weekends, to the recording. Using the Institute's slightly more advanced equipment after hours, she tried to filter the sound, isolate its components, map its frequencies. The pattern was there, complex and elusive. It seemed to shift slightly with each repetition, as if evolving. Was it language? A beacon? A warning? Or just a fantastically complex auditory illusion created by overlapping signals and her own heightened state of awareness during the landing? She scanned the same frequency band relentlessly. Silence. The phantom had vanished as mysteriously as it had appeared. This lack of repeatability gnawed at her. Without confirmation, without another instance, her single recording felt increasingly fragile, more like a dream than data. She felt an increasing sense of isolation. The shared global experience of the moon landing now served only to highlight her secret divergence from it. While others discussed the political implications, the scientific achievements, the sheer wonder of it all, Elena wrestled with the implications of that brief, aberrant sound. It began to affect her work, her concentration wavering, her thoughts drifting back to the tape machine, to the pulsing rhythm from the void. Doubt became a constant companion. Was she chasing shadows? Had the pressure of the event, the late hours, somehow conspired to create this auditory hallucination? If you've ever felt you've stumbled onto something inexplicable, something the rational world would dismiss, let us know in the comments below. Share your experience, your moment of questioning reality. Elena needed confirmation, a sign that she wasn't alone in hearing the impossible. She decided to take a risk, a careful, calculated one. She wouldn't report the signal itself, not yet, but she would start discreetly asking questions, probing the edges of the radio monitoring community, searching for any hint that someone, somewhere, might have also been listening to that forgotten frequency on that historic day. The search for corroboration had begun, a search that would lead her down paths she could never have anticipated. The burden of the secret remained Elena's alone, a silent weight against the backdrop of Helsinki's measured calm. Her decision to investigate, however discreetly, felt like stepping off a well-lit path into deepening twilight. She began by composing carefully worded inquiries, sent via postal mail to addresses gleaned from amateur radio journals and obscure technical bulletins across Europe. She presented herself as a linguistics researcher studying signal bleed-through during high-power global broadcasts, specifically referencing the Apollo 11 landing window. She asked about anomalies, unexpected carriers, anything unusual logged on or near the specific auxiliary frequency band where she had heard the echo. It was a delicate dance of revealing just enough to elicit information, but not enough to raise alarms. Waiting for replies felt like listening for whispers in a hurricane. Weeks bled into months. Most responses were polite dismissals. Logs were incomplete. Equipment wasn't monitoring those specific bands, or nothing unusual was noted. Standard denials that chipped away at her resolve. Yet Elena persisted, driven by the memory of that structured, alien resonance. The tape recording, now her most precious and dangerous possession, was duplicated onto a smaller reel, which she concealed within the spine of an old Russian dictionary. The original remained locked away at the Institute, hopefully unnoticed amongst archived research materials. But was anything truly unnoticed in a world crisscrossed by invisible lines of surveillance? A persistent clicking sound occasionally surfaced during her phone calls. Once, returning to her apartment, she felt a distinct sense that things were subtly out of place. A book repositioned, a drawer not quite closed. Paranoia or prudence? In Cold War Helsinki, the line was dangerously thin. How far would you go to uncover a truth only you seemed to possess? Elena felt the walls subtly closing in. Then a breakthrough, small but electrifying. A letter arrived, not from a formal institution, but from an elderly man, retired radio engineer living in rural Austria. His handwriting was shaky, the message cryptic. He didn't directly answer her questions about signal bleed-through. Instead, he wrote about sky symphonies and rogue harmonics sometimes heard during moments of intense global focus, like the moon landing. He mentioned a specific, now-defunct listening post in the Alps that had allegedly cataloged unexplained structured resonances for years, dismissing them officially as geophysical phenomena. He included a complex mathematical notation, almost as an afterthought, describing a type of frequency modulation he termed phase resonant. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. The notation, it mirrored the underlying structure she had painstakingly tried to map from her own recording. It wasn't identical, but the mathematical language was undeniably similar. Could this be it? A corroborating fragment, a shared glimpse into the impossible? Energized by this fragile lead, Elena redoubled her efforts, focusing her research on the defunct Austrian listening post and the concept of phase-resonant signals. This deeper dive, however, seemed to attract more direct attention. One evening, leaving the Institute late, Mr. Nieminen stopped her, his usual pragmatic demeanor strained with concern. He spoke vaguely of budget cuts, of the need to focus on assigned projects, of the potential for misinterpretation when dealing with sensitive frequencies in the current political climate. He didn't mention her inquiries, didn't mention the echo, but the warning was clear. Stop digging. The subtle pressure confirmed her fears. Someone knew she was probing. Someone didn't want the sky symphonies investigated. Was it merely bureaucratic caution, Or was Neminin relaying a message from unseen watchers? The Austrian engineer's letter, once a beacon of hope, now felt like bait in a trap. Yet, the mathematical notation was the first piece of external validation she had. It suggested the echo wasn't just in her head or her equipment. It was a phenomenon, however strange, that someone else had recognized, perhaps even studied. She felt herself at a crossroads. Heed the warning, abandon the search, and return to the safe, predictable world of translation? Or push forward, follow the trail of the Austrian engineer and the phase-resonant signals, despite the growing risks? The memory of the echo, pure, structured, and undeniably alien, made the decision for her. If you think Elena should trust her instincts and continue her search despite the danger, type trust in the comments below. She couldn't unknow what she had heard. She had to understand its source, its meaning. Elena decided to try and contact the Austrian engineer directly, a decision that would force the lurking shadows into the light. Armed with the fragile validation from the Austrian engineer and acutely aware of the invisible scrutiny she was under, Elena made her move. Trusting official channels was impossible. She composed a carefully coded message, referencing the specific mathematical notation for phase-resonant signals and proposing a meeting, embedding the request within seemingly innocuous linguistic queries. She sent it not to the engineer's previous address, but to a discreet postbox service in Vienna she found linked to publications he had contributed to decades earlier. It felt like dropping a message in a bottle into a vast, dark ocean. Then she waited, the silence amplifying the clicking on her phone line, the shadows seeming to lengthen in her small Helsinki apartment. The reply, when it came, was not a letter. It was a knock on her door. Not the sharp rap of authority, but a quiet, hesitant pattern. Standing outside was not the elderly engineer she envisioned, nor the menacing agent she feared, but a woman, perhaps a decade older than Elena, with eyes that held a familiar blend of weariness and fierce intelligence. She introduced herself only as Greta, a former associate of the engineer, her Gruber. He had passed away peacefully some months prior, she explained, but had left instructions regarding certain correspondences, particularly any mentioning phase resonance. Greta had driven from Austria, bypassing official routes, compelled by the specifics in Elena's coded message. She carried a worn leather satchel. Inside Elena's apartment, the atmosphere thick with unspoken questions, Greta opened the satchel. It contained not definitive proof of alien communication, but something perhaps even more unsettling. Gruber's private research notes, diagrams, and reels of audio tape, far older than Elena's. For years, Gruber, ostracized by the mainstream scientific community, had obsessively cataloged these sky symphonies. His hypothesis, Greta explained, was radical. The echoes weren't transmissions to Earth from aliens. They were more like resonances from Earth, or rather, from the collective human consciousness, during moments of intense, globally shared focus, interacting with poorly understood layers of the ionosphere and perhaps something beyond. The moon landing, a moment of unprecedented unified attention, had triggered the strongest resonance he had ever logged, a signal that seemed to momentarily imprint itself onto certain sensitive frequencies, the one Elena happened to be monitoring. The structure Elena heard wasn't a language, but a complex harmonic echo of human thought and emotion, amplified and distorted by natural phenomena, and, Gruber suspected, inadvertently modulated by the powerful broadcast technologies blanketing the planet. An interstellar echo, yes, but perhaps an echo of ourselves, reflected back from the cosmos in a way we never conceived. Greta played one of Gruber's tapes. The sound was undeniably similar to Elena's recording, the same haunting, structured resonance, but fainter, recorded years earlier during another global event. It wasn't proof positive, but it was a staggering recontextualization. The implications were immense. Was human consciousness interacting with the universe in ways science didn't yet understand? Or was Gruber's theory simply another layer of misinterpretation, perhaps masking a terrestrial technology, a sophisticated psychological operation run by unknown players who preferred the alien explanation as a smokescreen? Greta admitted Gruber himself was never certain, torn between cosmic possibilities and terrestrial secrets. He believed powerful groups knew something about this phenomenon and actively discouraged investigation, fearing its implications for control or perhaps wielding it themselves. Neminen's warning to Elena suddenly seemed less about foreign spies and more about disturbing a carefully managed silence. Greta offered Elena Gruber's core research notes. He wanted this preserved, understood, she said, but he also knew the danger. The choice was now Elena's. Release the findings, potentially triggering panic, ridicule, or dangerous attention from those who guarded the secret, or safeguard the knowledge, preserving it until a time the world might be ready, or perhaps burying it forever. What would you have done? Carry the weight of such reality-altering knowledge? Elena looked at her own tape recorder, at Gruber's meticulously kept notes, then out at the quiet Helsinki street. She had sought confirmation of an alien signal, but found a mystery deeper and more intrinsically human than she could have imagined. Her life as a translator, dealing with the nuances of human communication, suddenly felt both small and profoundly relevant. In the end, Elena made a choice born of caution and a translator's respect for context. She didn't release the tapes or the theory wholesale. Instead, she anonymously archived Gruber's core research, along with her own recording and analysis, in multiple secure, obscure locations, digital dead drops, time capsules of a sort, hoping that future researchers, perhaps guided by whispers of sky symphonies, might one day piece the puzzle together. She returned to her life, forever changed, carrying the silent knowledge that during humanity's giant leap, the universe hadn't necessarily spoken back, but perhaps, in a way beyond understanding, it had listened and echoed. The past is never truly past. It resonates in hidden frequencies, in the lives of ordinary people who witness the extraordinary. What other secrets lie buried in the static of history? What echoes wait to be heard? Keep seeking, keep questioning. Thank you for joining us on Ordinary People at Historical Events. If this story resonated with you, if it made you wonder about the unseen layers of reality surrounding us, please subscribe, share this video, and continue exploring with us. Because sometimes the greatest discoveries are found not in the headlines, but in the whispers between them.